First and foremost, I want everybody to take a deep breath and relax, okay?
I feel like my eyes sticking to one side of my brain and shit, you know what I mean?
Go to bed,
Okay, my name is Taylor Dunn. Y'all keep it going.
You are now listening to the Mac Daddy Seminar, motherfucker.
What's cracking, pimps? What's going on? And welcome to episode 45 of the Mac Daddy Seminar. As always, I'm your host, Taylor Dunn, and we're just gonna roll right into it today, guys. Okay? A couple of days ago, I put out a post on Facebook and I said, who are my big conspiracy theorists out there? I want to do a podcast circulating around conspiracy theories and things that people believe that other people don't, and vice versa. And I had a pretty good amount of responses. A couple of you reached out to me, and I decided to go with my guest today. And I'm just going to jump right into it. My guest today on the podcast is a Alabama-born comic. We didn't ever really meet up in person. However, we pretty much started at the same comedy club, the Stardome in Birmingham. He now lives in Boston, Massachusetts, where he does stand-up up there. He has a podcast called Trash Panda Talks Wrestling. Go check that out on YouTube and wherever you stream your podcasts. My guest today is none other than Vadien Jones.
I'm good to go, man.
That's good to hear, man. How you doing?
Doing really well. Hanging out up here in Boston.
How is the how's it going up there as far as what's going on with the whole lockdown and whatnot?
Well, the New England has kind of shut itself off from the rest of the world at this point. We're doing really well. Things are starting to open up a little bit. I'm even able to get back to bartending a little bit. So
the bars are actually opening up there.
Yeah, I was at the bar last night till like 11.
Jesus. So here in San Diego, we pretty much shut everything down like March 13th or so. And as soon as it did, it literally just turned it into like no man's land. You couldn't do shit, right? I went to the Comedy Store up in La Jolla the night before everything shut down, and they sold the place out, but it was still like you knew it was coming, because they were like wiping everything down, and the main Comedy Store in LA had just closed. So, everybody was kind of looking at each other like, what's about to happen? And then they announced it was shutting down, and it was nothing for like a month. Bars were closed. You couldn't go to the zoo. I mean, you couldn't do anything. And then it stayed like that for like a month, and they slowly started to open things back up. Like even the beach was closed.
Yeah.
Which 90% of San Diego is covered in coastline. So we were like, how are you going to keep people from going to the beach? And they'd write you like $1,000 ticket if they caught you walking around on the beach.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. So pretty much everything slowly started to open back up right around the time of like all the protests and stuff. Then that made everybody not want to go outside. And then as that started to kind of go away a little bit, then, oh, well, the cases are spiking again. Sorry, that was around July 4th. And since then, no bars have been open. The comedy clubs have moved to outside. So it's just weird. Like, just finding things to go do is so difficult right now. Like, I just posted on Facebook a couple of minutes ago of how jealous I am of Alabama, because I see all these people on Facebook. They're going to water parks and, riding rides and shit. They got the fair coming back here pretty soon, and I'm like, we got to wear a mask on the beach here.
It's like, we shut everything, like everything was shut down for like 3 months. So we've only been slowly opening up for like a month. With my roommate, basically like 3 hookups a week. I mean, good for him, but it made me feel really nervous.
I mean, that's so, like, did you see that shit where they were like, hey, if you want to hook up with a girl, you need to do it through like a barrier, like consider doing it through the wall or some shit.
I mean, like, what's at that point? You're just doing it, right?
Yeah, I know, right?
My
Like,
connection maybe a little.
it's all good, man. But
Yeah, I mean, the only mask you need at that point is, condom. So
I guess that's just so weird. Like when they posted that, everybody just was like, "This is a joke." Because what else do you have to do? Honestly, like if you're a single guy, you can't really go out and go anywhere. You still got Tinder, So if girls are coming over to hook up, and the CDC wants you to do it through a fucking wall to prevent you from catching the goddamn coronavirus. I don't know. What do you think about all this stuff, man? Like, do you think there's something bigger at play? Do you think, like, what is your take on the coronavirus?
well, I have several theories. Several theories. If it was made in China, it would make sense because they sent us into an economic shutdown collapse that we ended up having to borrow like $3 trillion, and now we're going to do it again. So they essentially own our economy at this point. So it's economic warfare, if nothing else. And
Right.
I believe I had this theory on my podcast a couple of weeks ago that Trump and the coronavirus were created in the same lab to destroy America, and that's why Trump can't get coronavirus.
Isn't that like that was a thing that I said like back in April? I was like, all these politicians, especially him, like you never see them wearing a mask, and they're telling everybody you need to wear a mask to go outside. But you never like he just recently, I just saw an article. It was like Trump is seen for the first time wearing a mask in public, and I'm like, he's still traveling around. He's getting on. I mean, yeah, it's Air Force One and whatnot, but still, like, is it really that important that everyone wears a mask? Maybe he had it. Maybe he had the coronavirus and it was just real quick, and he was like, we're not going to tell anybody that he had it. Because think about how crazy everybody would go if it came out that he had it.
I think he's avoided it just by like drinking bleach.
That could be it. I'm curious to see, like, let's fast forward like a year from now, and then they figure out if there's like some random cure. Like, hey, if you eat a Tide Pod, you're immune to the coronavirus. Maybe that's why so many young kids the cases haven't spiked in young kids. Because remember, that was like a year ago where that was a thing where motherfuckers were eating Tide Pods and we had nothing to worry about.
The answer's been right in front of us the whole time.
I don't know, man. Like, there's so much, like, that was really the whole purpose of this. This is the reason I wanted to get together with you and talk today, is because it seems like the whole idea of calling people a conspiracy theorist has gone away because so much crazy shit is happening right now. I think everybody is a little bit of a conspiracy theorist at this point.
Well, the coronavirus is like the perfect setup for a whirlwind of conspiracy theories.
Yeah. Everybody's locked inside. You have full access to the internet. And then the more crazy shit starts happening, people start putting two and two together. Like, I've read some stuff that'll take me like an hour to read. And it's like, this is all connected. Like, people think, the coronavirus pandemic somehow goes into the whole Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, the pedophile, the pedo wood, as they're calling it, from Hollywood right now.
What was that last part?
The whole part about, like, they think how the coronavirus, and they think it's all a big distraction from all this, like, this pedo-wood pedophilia stuff that's going on, like, in Hollywood and attached to celebrities and politicians. Like, have you been reading into that at all?
I've read a little bit into it, but that's something that's like always been happening. It's been happening for like several years now, and if you wanted to distract everybody from it, just put out another Tiger King.
Yeah.
And then we're good. Like,
yeah. I don't know. I feel like at this point there's no going back. Like, because now they're starting to protest. like against pedophilia in Hollywood, which is, it's kind of beautiful to see because it's people from all different races, all different ages. Like, this is the one cause that every single person gets behind. Like, hey, this is fucked up. Regardless if you're a diehard conservative or like a super strong liberal, everybody is coming together and they're like, hey, this is fucked up on a human level. And they're walking down Sunset Boulevard protesting against it right now. And like with all this shit that I'm seeing about, like, all these documents have come out that, you know, the statements that Ghislaine Maxwell has made, you know, her naming names, like people like Tom Hanks. Like, he's one of the...
Tom Hanks is shocking to me because he's like America's man, you know?
Yeah. Like, he's in Alabama, he is an icon because of...
Oh, absolutely. He should have a statue right next to the guy from To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah. Like, it's... Like, that was everybody's movie growing up. Like, if you were from Alabama, you watched Forrest Gump at least once.
I mean, I don't know anybody from Alabama that like can't quote that like half the movie.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's a great movie, regardless of what it, like, me and my wife were talking about it last night. Like, hey, if all this shit about Tom Hanks turns out to be true, are you not going to watch Forrest Gump anymore?
Or Castaway even.
We watched Castaway a couple of nights ago too. My daughter wanted to watch it with us.
Oh,
we
wow.
sat on the, yeah. She was like, "What? Why is he on that island?" And I was like, "He's stuck there." She was like, "Why doesn't he build a boat?" And I'm like, "I don't know. It wouldn't be a very good movie if he did." Which he does at the end.
Which he does.
Yeah. But I don't know, man.
I mean, I would absolutely probably still watch Forrest Gump. I don't know. It's just iconic.
Yeah, like, there's so many, like, with all the people that they've named off that could have connection to this entire Jeffrey Epstein scandal, that this has been happening for 20 plus years. All the stuff that Alex Jones talked about years ago, and everybody's like, oh, this motherfucker's crazy, when he started talking about Bohemian Grove and all these politicians running around in the woods naked and shit and worshiping the devil. All of this shit is starting to make sense now. And it's like, what happened?
I mean, with every conspiracy, there's like at least an ounce of truth.
Yeah, it has to be. Like, some of it is so dark and twisted. Like, when you really read into it, it's like, okay, I don't know how true this is. This just sounds like somebody who dropped LSD one night and knew how to write an article. And now it's got, 50,000 people trending it on Reddit. Like, what is, really going on with that whole scandal? What's happening, like, in actuality, and what is, like, all built up off of imagination? Like, have you read into Frazzle Drip at all?
Oh, no, what's that?
Okay. So this is the darkest one that I've come across to date. Okay? Now, don't quote me on this because I've only read the article and, like, watched videos on it just because I saw it trending on Twitter. All right? So, and I saw some stuff about it on Facebook. So, basically, for like 10, 15 years now, all of these, like, stars like Ellen DeGeneres, Jay-Z, Lady Gaga, they've all been, like, even Castaway, even the volleyball, Wilson and Castaway, it's got, like, that bloody handprint with a face. They're all, like, doing something, I guess, to drop hints about Frazzle Drip, okay? So what Frazzle Drip is according to this article, you remember Anthony Weiner?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So he got in trouble because they found out he was, like, sending his wiener to people, right?
The most ironic scandal.
One of the funniest things that I've ever heard, right? So apparently the FBI started doing an investigation on him, and they went on his laptop. And on his laptop, he had a file labeled life insurance. They clicked on it, and when it opened up was a video, and it was Hillary Clinton and another high-profile politician, woman. her name escapes me. If you want to Google it, I'm sure the information's all there. But apparently there's a video of Hillary Clinton and another high-profile politician in the woods with a little girl chained to a tree.
Whoa.
Yeah. And they are, in the video, they are torturing her in order to produce adrenochrome. And what adrenochrome is when apparently when you terrorize somebody to the point that their adrenal glands, their adrenaline flushes through their bloodstream, and they apparently, when you drink blood that has high amounts of adrenaline in it, it's almost like the fountain of youth. It's like the miracle drug. Apparently it makes you smarter, it makes you more focused, it makes you hardly age. And I've seen how it connects to all types of things like they've been dropping hints about this all along, like in the movie Monsters Inc. Like that was how the monsters powered their city, was by scaring children. Yeah.
Oh shit.
But I mean, the video, the way that they described it was the most insane thing I have ever heard. Like it's got heavy trigger warnings on it. You can't actually see the video, but it's like people's interviews that have seen it, and they give a description of what they saw. And they said that they have a little girl chained to the tree in the woods, and Hillary Clinton cuts this little girl's face off and puts it on her own face and is dancing around with it, trying to terrorize the little girl. Of course, I don't know who would even survive something like that, but apparently that wasn't enough. And then they cut this child's stomach open and pull out their intestines. And then she obviously dies. And then they drink her blood, and they're running around. They got robes on and all this crazy shit. It's the most demonic, satanic thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, that's the craziest shit I've ever heard of. Now, I would believe it had some sort of fountain of youth properties if Hillary Clinton didn't look the way she does.
Well, right. I mean, she's obviously not giving it to Bill.
She's obviously not taking it herself either.
Yeah, Bill looks like a fucking corpse. I don't know if you've seen Bill lately, but for the past couple
of walking skeleton.
Obviously he was president 20, 25 plus years ago, but I mean, the motherfucker looked kind of healthy back then. It's almost like fucking Hillary Clinton's been drinking his blood or some shit, because I've seen pictures of them together and I'm like, holy fuck, he looks terrible. But yeah, I mean, and it's just weird because here, I'm trying to pull it up on my phone so I can show a picture. I'll put it in a drop down thing later. But there's all this shit on it. Yeah, all you got to do is Google it. You just Google Frazzle Drip and you see all these pictures of fucking Anthony Weiner, and I mean, shit like this pops up. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh shit! That's from fucking They Live.
Yeah. Here, I'll read it to you. It says, the purpose of this file name of a snuff film found on the laptop of Anthony Weiner in a folder named Life Insurance. It was said to make even the most hardened New York City police veterans cry. It's said to show Weiner's wife, Huma Abedin, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, and Hillary Clinton performing a satanic ritual abuse on a young girl, surgically removing her face and wearing it as a mask to flood the victim's bloodstream with adrenaline. Blood drank in this state is an elite's drug of choice called adrenochrome. Now, with all of that said, that's so crazy. They're there's no way some shit like that's actually happening. But imagine if that shit is true.
It looks like it's from 2018.
It might be. I mean, it may not be a new story.
Yeah, from what I'm seeing, I'm not going into too much detail. It looks like there's just more evidence now.
Yeah. Like you said, people are inside. They have time to research this type of thing, and they can make their own videos and make their own, accounts of what's happening. But like, imagine how little of a fuck everyone will give about everything if stuff like that is true.
Yeah, it kind of. That's the thing about like conspiracies. Like, you start to care less about other things as something gets more and more ridiculous.
Yeah. Like, how are you
But
worried?
in a way, the conspiracy is the conspiracy.
Yeah. Like, didn't the Pentagon just a couple of days ago confirm that we have UFOs flying around in space and shit? And it's like no big deal. Like, no one even cares.
Well, I mean, we've been talking about UFOs since like the 40s and 30s.
Yeah. I mean, but it's always been speculation. But now we actually are getting proof from our government. Like, hey, this is real. And everybody's just like, oh, well, you know, you gotta wear a mask to go to Applebee's.
If you let people sit on a conspiracy for long enough, like aliens, it just becomes like accepted.
Yeah.
Even if it's not confirmed, people are just like, yeah, aliens are probably a thing. And then by the time they're like, oh yeah, we actually have all this video that we never showed you guys. It's like, oh yeah, we kind of knew.
Yeah. Like, it's just,
and that's what's ridiculous is like aliens used to be the big conspiracy, and now it's just like it's nothing because there's so many other ridiculous things.
yeah, I feel like everybody's like, well, if they were going to attack us, they would have done it by now. And if they're not here to, you know, kill us all, then I'm not really that worried about it.
Yeah, well, I think we're not worth their time if they're out there. We're like
Maybe.
Goldfish to them.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different interpretations of like what they would look like and what they would want. You know, I would hope it'd be like that movie Signs, where they're like scary as hell looking, but they don't like water. Like, I'd feel pretty safe. I would just lock and load, have super soakers all over my house, and be like, you know, run up if you want to.
Break out the garden hose.
That movie is scary as fuck.
That movie's stupid as fuck.
Well, I saw it for the first time when I was like 7 years old. And I just moved to like the boonies of Alabama. Like, I lived in Montgomery and then moved, you know, out past Wetumpka, which is butt fuck nowhere, where it's just cornfields and like farmhouses. And that was the first movie we watched after we moved out there. And it scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, okay. That hits a little closer.
I mean, the scariest part of the whole movie is that Mexican birthday party. That was I think it's funny now, but watching it back then, those kids are like, look, 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 and that motherfucker comes walking across the screen like this.
Like a Bigfoot.
Yeah. And then knowing the entire time, like after you've seen it once, like you could just go throw a glass of water on that motherfucker and it'll kill him.
Yeah, and like, why did it take them so long to figure out just like water?
I don't know. Even like, because M. Night Shyamalan, you know, he's always got like a small part in his movies and stuff. And when Mel Gibson talks to him, he's like, I don't think they like water. And that ends up being the thing that beats them at the end. It's like, oh, we just got to throw tap water on these things and it'll kill them.
At least they weren't like, at least they didn't have to waste like whiskey or something, just the water.
Yeah. I mean, think like, why would they come to a planet that's like 80% water to begin with? Would they just be in like the middle of the U.S., places like Oklahoma and shit, where there's like hardly any water, or the desert? Maybe that's why there's so many, you know, accounts of like UFOs out in the desert and shit, because there's no water out there.
Oh, that's a fair point. And like, you know, Area 51's out in the middle of the desert.
Yep. It's kind of crazy that you brought up Area 51.
I still think Area 51 is not like, I think an alien just got lost and then we like carjacked him.
Yeah. I had an opportunity to go to that base. Like, so Edwards Air Force Base is like really closely connected to Area 51. And I was actually going to be stationed there before I got orders here. So I had an opportunity to be like on the airbase that connected to Area 51. And I lost those orders. But I was just like, I started researching it before I found out I was going there. And I was like, oh, shit. You know? Because I'd be wandering around and stuff. Like, I get bored. So, I'll go for a walk on my way to the smoke pit or something. And, if I look in a hangar bay and I see a fucking spaceship, I gotta put that on Instagram.
I drove down UFO Highway going into Roswell at I was on a road trip and we drove into Roswell at midnight, and it's one of the creepiest roads I have ever been on. There was no clouds, but there were no stars. It was
that's weird.
Clear night, but it was just pitch black in every direction except for where the headlights were. It was so eerie, creepy.
That is really weird. Because you would think if there's no artificial light that you would be able to see hella stars up there. Like when I lived out in the country, there was, hardly any houses, so you could look up and just see so many fucking stars up there. And
yeah, that's what freaked me out. Is I'm used to living out in the country too, and just sitting on top of a hill and staring at the stars. But I'm telling you, there was no rain, there were no clouds. It was a clear night, and then just all of a sudden, it was pitch black in every direction.
That's scary.
For a good couple of miles.
That's scary as fuck.
There's got to be something to it out there. I don't know what. I'm just saying. There's something.
I don't know, man. How do you feel about ghosts and shit?
I mean, when it comes to ghosts, it starts to get into this religious zone that I don't really care for.
I feel you.
But I mean, energy is energy, so can't scientifically energy can't be created or destroyed. So I don't know what happens to me after I go. Maybe I'd just be a ghost and hang out. Maybe my energy just kind of sticks around.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm kind of in the same boat. It does get into religion and whatnot, like what happens after we die. But I don't know if I believe in ghosts. I've never encountered anything paranormal. I hope I don't, because I am such a bitch when it comes to that type of stuff. I don't like even watching paranormal movies because
I'm still scarred by The Exorcist.
I don't think I've ever actually watched the original Exorcist. Because
it's the only horror movie that I literally still cannot watch to this day for some reason.
And all the reports that so much shit was happening on the set while they were filming it and stuff. Apparently a few people died while they were filming the movie and stuff. That shit creeps me out, man.
Yeah, there's a couple of movies that have weird conspiracies behind them, weird stuff was going on.
I don't know. I've never personally witnessed anything paranormal, but I can watch. Have you watched The Haunting of Hill House?
I think I watched the original one.
There's an original one?
Yeah, there's a old black and white one.
Oh shit! I didn't even know that, because I just watched the series on Netflix, and I'm a grown ass man, and that fucking show scared the shit out of me.
Now just imagine it with Vincent Price.
Oh my god,
It's great.
Because I watched it. It was such a good show. We binged the entire first season in 2 days. We just started watching it, and it was scary as fuck. But we couldn't turn away because it was so good. We finished the entire thing.
Like a scary car wreck.
Yeah, it was it fucked me up. Anything that happened right after that, if the light started flickering or some shit, I'd just be standing in the living room what the fuck is happening?
But see, the thing, I don't know, I don't get weirded out by stuff like that anymore. I guess now that I live in Boston, weird sounds and noises just happen everywhere, all the time. So I kind of get immune to it.
Yeah, I kind of hear what you're saying. Like when the house, because I stayed here by myself for a couple of weeks. My wife and my daughter, they went back to Alabama just because it's so boring here. So they went home to visit family for a little bit. And I'm on a travel ban right now. I can still travel, but it has to be approved by like really bigwig people, and you have to give them like a legitimate reason to leave. So anyway, I stayed here for like 3 weeks by myself, and I would go to bed at night, and anytime like the house would make a noise, like like sometimes houses will pop and shit in the middle of the night.
Oh, yeah.
It would scare the shit out of me because I'd just be laying in bed. It's pitch black in my house, and all of a sudden you just hear this loud, and I'm like, what the fuck was that? Or if my dog started barking, because we had this little pipsqueak of a dog, and any type of anything like that, he'll start barking at it, and I'm like, what the fuck? I don't know. That shit freaks me out. But on the other hand, if being a ghost is an option after we die, I would probably pick to be a ghost. Just for
I'm definitely taking that option.
It's like, hey, okay, so here are your options. You can, if you're a good person, if you're religious or whatnot, you pass on to heaven or the paradise or whatever, or you go to hell, or you can attempt to get into heaven, but you got to be a ghost, and you got to do good. You got to do this certain stuff as a ghost.
I mean, what if I just don't want to do either one? I just want to like hang out and terrorize people that I hate.
That would be, yeah. I mean, I'm definitely scaring the shit out of some people.
If I'm gonna be a ghost, I'm gonna be a malevolent like ghost figure.
Yeah, like I want there to be like film crews coming out to where I am, like coming to, like I want that to be the best episode of Ghost Adventures. When they come to the Dunn house and they're like, "Oh, this guy, he was an open mic comedian back in the 2010 2020s, and he passed away, and now his ghost haunts all the families that live here, yada yada yada." And then they're like, I can't even watch Ghost Adventures just because it feels so made up. It's just like that Bigfoot show where
those shows are like, they try way too hard.
it's like, if you're here, say something, and they just show the little energy spike on their like EMP reader, and it's like, oh, okay, it's really cold in here.
we see the orbs. We see the orbs, bro. That's the dustiest room you've ever been in.
Yeah, show them to me. Like, I want to. If they really want people to watch that show, let me see some shit that I've seen in a movie. Let me see something come running out of the dark, punch somebody in the face, and we have that on film. That okay.
Let me see all the cabinets opening and shutting, and like chair fly across the room or some shit. Don't give me this. Ooh, I heard a noise.
Yeah. Like I actually, whenever I was coming out to California, we went to a place that was on an episode of Ghost Adventures. It was the Birdhouse Theater in Tombstone, Arizona.
Okay.
Which I highly, highly recommend. If you've never been down there, definitely make a stop. If you like the movie Tombstone, you will fall in love. It is the coolest. I mean, the town it's a real place. And the whole town has got, stuff about Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp and all this shit in there. And the Birdcage Theater, which they actually made a scene in the movie, it's still standing. And you can go inside and, it's like a museum, but at night they turn it into a paranormal experience.
Of course.
And then they take you in there and they cut all the lights off and shit, and you sit in silence for like 30 minutes. And apparently like 80 people have died in that building, and there's bullet holes all in the ceiling and shit. So when we paid to go in, it was still during the day, but I was like, this is fucking spooky. Because, I mean, it's an old-ass building, and it shows you, like, how little people were back then, like these little bitty doorways that now you have to, like, squeeze under and, like, walk through. I don't think people talk about that enough. Like, why were people so short 50, 60 years ago?
Yeah, it's really not even that long ago. Well, I guess I don't know. That's a good question. Why were people so tiny?
Like we lived in this house when I was in high school that had these doors that led to the attic, and they no shit were like 4 feet tall.
That's
Like
weird.
it wasn't.
The
It
house
wasn't.
I'm in now in Boston is like a real, like, obviously Boston's an old city, but like the basement downstairs, there's like doors that come up to like right here on me.
Yeah. It's like it's not little enough to be a crawl space, but it's not tall enough to be a full door.
Maybe those doors are built for ghosts. They're the only ones that can go through them.
I didn't spend a lot of time up there. Like the only times I ever would look in that room would be to like, I don't know. I think I just show it to people. Like, look at this creepy ass door. And it was in my brother and my sister's room because the way the house was set up, my brother's room was on one end, my sister's room was on the other. I lived in the basement, and my parents, they lived on the main floor. So the house was like set up like this, and they both had a door that led to the attic in their rooms. So they both had this little bitty ass door in their rooms, and I would be like, you know, what if this is like a fucking entrance to another dimension? I mean, I was smoking gratuitous amounts of marijuana at the time. So, you know, I could believe that shit for days. But, you know, it was just so weird. Like you'd go in there and you could look through the other side and you'd have somebody look at you, and then we would trip out about that shit for days.
Well, that's the thing with ghosts and paranormal. Like, your mind is so, the human mind is so creative and has such a big imagination that like we'll just take anything and run with that, like we do with conspiracy theories. Like you hear a bump in the night and then you're like, oh, that must be the ghost of Colonel so and so from 1842.
Yeah. I don't know, man. After watching that Patrick Swayze movie Ghost, that was one of my favorite movies growing up as a kid. I was like, you know what? It might be pretty cool to be a ghost because you could legitimately scare the shit out of like people that you hated.
Yeah, that's my whole goal. Like, I have no life goals. I have afterlife goals.
Yeah. I feel you. I don't know though. Like, you think there's like a learning curve like he had in that movie where he had to like learn how to pick stuff up, or do you think you just got it like that?
It's got to be, because I guess turning into a ghost would be like, you know, being born. You had to figure out how to walk, or like I guess it would take a little bit of time. You wouldn't just jump in and be like, "Ooh, I can do everything."
You got to level up like you're in a video game. Like at first, you got to learn how to like walk through walls and not fall through the floor and shit like that. And then eventually, you can learn how to make the lights flicker. And then you start picking stuff up, and pretty soon you can make all the furniture in the house levitate and shit like that. And
see, that's the real ghost adventure.
have they made a video game like that? I want to say that they have. I know they made.
Gotta be.
I know they made one where you were like a detective and you get killed and you still got to like solve. I think it's called like Murdered Soul Suspect or something. I don't think it was very good because it's always like 99 cents on the PlayStation Store. But I think you get killed and you come back and you are a ghost. And you get to solve the crime, like you get to solve your own murder as a ghost.
I don't think I would waste my time trying to figure out who killed me or solve my murder once I'm dead, I'm dead.
Yeah.
I got ghost things to do. I gotta figure out how to manifest myself and go, ooh.
Yeah.
I got no time for that.
I know, right?
Like I said, I got afterlife goals.
So what's the comedy scene like in Boston when everything isn't shut down?
It's pretty good. It's I feel like with every comedy scene everywhere, there's always a little bit of clickiness, and you got your groups here and groups there. But overall, it's like really supportive. Like I remember, like there are people that I don't get along with very well, but like when I broke my leg and had to be in the hospital for a couple of months, like everybody like showed support and like donated money for me and shit. So like yeah, there's so much variety. People that do one-liners, people that do stories. It's a good mix. There's a lot of sketch comedy up here. I'm a little sad the improv closed.
Oh yeah.
For good, I think. But I didn't really like the people that ran it. But that's a me thing. But overall, like there's this, you can do comedy any day of the week.
Yeah. It's the same reason I wanted to move out here. Like when they offered, the Navy offered me orders to San Diego, I was like, yeah, I'll take them, and because I was in Mississippi for 5 years after I joined. I mean, obviously growing up in Alabama, there's only a handful of options that you can choose from. I went to the Stardome, but it being so far away, it wasn't like I could go there multiple times a week. And it was kind of the same story in Mississippi. Like the nearest comedy club was in like Jackson. So the only opportunities you had for open mics and whatnot was like if a local bar was putting one on.
Right.
And you'd go in there and, you'd walk in and there'd just be the normal crowd in there, these dudes that are like, yeah, man, we started this open mic, and nobody would be prepared. It would just be yeah, we're just going to talk shit, but just into a microphone, which some people are good at. Some people can do that and, it's hilarious, but you would go up there and, it'd be most of the time it'd be my first time going in there, and, I'd have a 5-minute set prepared, and, I'd get up and they'd all think it was fantastic just because it had something. Like it would be something now I'd consider to be terrible, but they'd all be like, man, that was fantastic. You got to come back next week. Hey, by the way, can I have a ride?
Yeah, that's always it.
I don't know you, man. Like, oh, dude, it's like that, man. I thought we were cool. It's like, I just met you,
Yeah, you just complimented my joke. That doesn't mean you get a ride.
And then, if you are nice enough to give them a ride, which I did one time, oh, can you stop at this gas station? And they go to the gas station and they, there's some shady dude standing outside, and he walks up to him. You see him give him some money, and you're like, hey, what the fuck did you just buy? What did you just get in my car with,
Yeah, that's what I didn't like about, it's why I moved to Boston. The more availability in everything, not just comedy. But yeah, it's like in Birmingham, you had the Stardome, and then there was like 2 bar spots during the week. And then to do any other open mics, you had to like drive to Montgomery one day. I had to drive to Memphis on Thursdays to do an open mic up in this 4-hour drive just to go do comedy. And now I can hop on a train, a commuter rail, and be in Rhode Island or go up to New Hampshire or New York.
Yeah. I mean, that's just like with here, like during the week, this is obviously when everything was open, because they're still doing open mic now, but it's weird. Like they just opened up a spot at my normal place, which is the Comedy Palace, which is a little bit of a drive. It's about a 15-minute drive, but the way they have it set up outside now, I like it, because it's almost like a wedding tent right outside the club, and they have a nice stage built, and it's bringing in a lot of like good crowds, like people that are buying drinks and they follow all the rules, and they're doing what they're supposed to. But my downtown spots are the Madhouse Comedy Club and the American Comedy Company, and they're pretty much right on the same street. Like when you walk right up through Gaslamp, which is the big party district in San Diego, you got the Madhouse on one corner and you got the American Comedy Company on another corner. And the way I'd always get there, I live on Coronado, which is this little island that's connected by like a peninsula and this big giant bridge in San Diego. And I would just ride the ferry across. So like it was really cool. It was a lot different than going to do comedy in Alabama, where you drive to the ferry landing and you hop on the ferry and you ride across, and then you just got to walk up through downtown, and then boom, you're right there at 2 of the biggest comedy clubs in the city.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. But now, they for a while, like everything shut down for a while, and then once all the protests started, the American Comedy Company stayed open under the guise of, well, we're having peaceful protests in here. So the governor couldn't, because that was the big thing. The governor was like, hey, so can't go to amusement parks. You can't go here. You can't go there. But if you want to protest, that's fine.
Yeah, I guess there's a constitutional thing you can't get past, really.
Yeah. So they said, hey, we're going to have a peaceful protest in here. So they stayed open, and they were making hella money because all the other comedy clubs in town were closed.
Yeah.
So they ran the monopoly, and they were having headliners come. They had Russell Peters come one night, and they had Tom Segura slotted for July 11th, I want to say. I bought tickets. They were super cheap, too. They were like $30 a piece to go see Tom Segura in a club that only seats like 150 people. So I was like, oh, shit. So I bought them, and then they shut everything down again. So he's slotted to perform August 27th, and I'm hoping that they don't just – he's not going to perform outside. He's too high profile to perform outside, especially because the material that he's going to use, he's probably going to shoot a special with, and I just don't see him being comfortable with, performing right out there on the street and everybody can record it with their cell phones. Like, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't think any of the comedy clubs here have opened up again. I know none of the open mic spots have. The Comedy Studio is still doing some like online content stuff. But other than that, I think there's like 2 or 3 people that are running like open mics like in their backyards.
Yeah, they're doing the same thing here. People have started their own, or they're going to like empty parking lots that nobody's used in 10 years, and they're setting up open mics. And it's cool. There's a lot of people who get around to a lot of the mics every single week. You'll see them at the Comedy Store. You'll see them in, the Palace. You'll see them everywhere. So now that everywhere's, a lot of the guys, they'll work there too.
Yeah.
They get opportunities to open for big name acts. I've seen a lot of like really good big name acts since I've been out here, which was crazy because, living in the South, you might have to drive to New Orleans or something to see somebody big. But that's what's so crazy. Like what you said about the opportunity here, like I drive 2 hours up the road and go to the Comedy Store, and you're seeing people with Netflix specials, people, legends walking around in the hallway. Like I got to go see Joe Rogan do an hour at the Comedy Store back in September, and I met Chris D'Elia in the hallway. I was like, holy shit. Now he's not the most popular person right now, but at the time, he was the man.
Yeah, I've never been I'll be honest, I've never been a D'Elia fan. And there's a former friend of mine, and fellow comedian, was super huge into Chris D'Elia. When the news broke about that, I was just like, oh, good. Like, they're going to be so upset.
Yeah. And I mean, I get that. Like, I'm not a huge fan of his stand-up. I think it's a lot of, like really easy premises. It's a lot of like bro humor. You can definitely
use the silly voice gimmick, which I always hate.
I get that. And I think that's a thing that people, have a misconception about. Like, you don't have to like somebody's comedy to be a fan of them. Like, there's people that I can't stand their specials, but I'm not a huge fan of Kevin Hart. I don't think a lot of, at least the recent stuff that Kevin Hart has done, is funny at all. And I still watch it. I'm trying to, see what I can learn. What is he doing? What can I do a little bit different,
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely respect the hustle, and there's definitely something, to be learned from it. People who make it that far, even if you think they're not funny.
Yeah.
I mean, I can respect the hustle. I respect the game. I just don't care for them.
Yeah. I don't know. They're coming after everybody out here. I think there's about to be a major shift in like what's considered like the spot to be as far as a comic. Like I'm sure you've heard by now, like Joe Rogan has left LA. He's going to Texas.
Really?
Yeah. Like he announced it like a month ago. He's been thinking about it for years, but it's just with the traffic and everything, like he makes so much money off of his podcast. He almost doesn't have to do stand up anymore.
Oh, he absolutely does. I mean, he just got a huge paycheck from what, Spotify.
Yeah. It's like 100. I'm sure it might have been even more, but what was reported was $100 million to make his podcast exclusive on Spotify.
That's insane. I mean, that is he already makes plenty just doing it on YouTube with his sponsors and whatnot.
Yeah, and I mean, you got to think about how many different jobs this guy has. Like a lot of people. I mean, think about like the UFC. Think about how much money he makes commentating the UFC.
Oh yeah, and he's been doing that since like almost day one.
And at the end of the day, he's still just a comic. Like I'm not a huge fan of Joe Rogan. When I watch his specials, I mean, some of it's funny, some of it's clever, but it's not like, oh my God, that was the funniest shit I've ever heard. But I went to go see him live, and it was 10 times better.
I can believe that because the way they edit specials, there's tons of material that doesn't make it into.
How do you feel about Andrew Schultz, if you don't mind me asking?
Which one is that?
New York-based comic. Doesn't have any specials out. He did a YouTube special called Crowdwork special. He put that out the same time Chappelle put out Sticks and Stones.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Well, I think that's the reason he wanted to do it. Like I get why a lot of people don't know about him. Like he's not mainstream yet, but the way that he's going about doing things is like completely different than how it's basically been written down. Is you do open mic for a long time, and then you start to get pretty good, you get pretty noticed, then you start to feature, and then you feature, and you be an opener for a while, and you do that, and you're a good feature, then you can start to cross over into headliner, and then you headline for 5 to 10 years, and then maybe a network will be like, hey, would you be interested in doing a special? And that's when you can really start to kind of blossom into like a full-blown A-lister comic. But with him, he's been in the game for 15 years, I want to say, and no one's ever offered him a special. He's been headlining for years, and he just started releasing content on YouTube, like just consistently releasing content. And he did that. He did a 30-minute special where it was all crowd work. So it was none of his material that he ran while he was on tour. And he dropped at the same time Chappelle dropped his special, almost to be like, I guess like, well, hey, everybody's going to watch the new Chappelle special and see what this other guy's talking about too. He put it out for free, put it out on YouTube, and it did pretty well. And he got offered to shoot a special. He was going to shoot it in April. My buddy, he bought me tickets for Christmas. They were going to shoot it in LA at the Orpheum Theater, and obviously it got pushed back. He pushed it all the way to November. I hope it still happens because I've never gone and watched a special taping. So I'm really interested to go do that.
Well, I just Googled Andrew Schultz a little bit, and but that's the thing with comedy. Like, there's a million of us. There's a million comics, and you just gotta find something that you gotta find your own lane, even if you gotta like make a new road. Even
Yeah,
so I respect that hustle. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, even right now with all the comedy clubs shut down, he's with his podcast, and like he puts out like this weekly, like almost like a 5-minute open mic set where he talks about everything that's happened over the past week. And it gets so many views on YouTube. And the thing that I think pulls a lot of people to him, I don't mean to be like a huge fanboy over Andrew Schultz. I just think it's really interesting how he's like changing the game up from how things have been done. Is he's so controversial with the shit that he talks about, and it's a lot of jokes that are like people can't get away with saying anymore. He's basically against the whole PC police, the whole cancel me movement, and he says whatever the fuck he wants to say, to the point sometimes you're like, oh shit, like this isn't going to be good. Like once this gets to, you know, the social justice warriors, he's going to be done. And it still hasn't happened. So I'm curious to see what happens with him.
You know, I'm not, with my comedy, I don't intend to be like offensive with anything, but for the comics that do, you just have to embody it and say whatever you want. And if somebody questions it, be like, yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I hate apologists. Like, people who, oh, I had this bad tweet and now everybody's hating me and I'm getting canceled. Fuck them.
Yeah.
Like, just leave it up there, move about your business, pay it no attention, and then it won't have any attention.
That really seems like, even with like the people that are getting canceled now, like what happened with Chris D'Elia, like that was pretty big news. I mean, it was on People, it was on all these big media outlets, and he just went radio silent, and it didn't help his cause at all. Because it's like, why are you being so quiet? You know,
well, that's a different situation. When you're accused of like actually doing something to people, that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
If you're getting mad at me over a tweet or like a joke you didn't like, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna pay that any mind.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It was like, did you hear about that girl? She was some character, I think, on a show called Big Mouth, and she was like, oh, well, I'm Caucasian and I play an African American character on this cartoon.
Yeah, wasn't there like Amy Poehler or something?
Somebody like that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I respect that decision, but like, you didn't cast yourself as that character. Like,
Yeah.
keep your job. Like, especially now, keep your job.
Yeah, right now, that's the big thing. If you can, especially like with a cartoon, because you could probably record that from anywhere.
Yeah, most people that do voiceovers have like the guy who does Bender from Futurama. He just has like a closet in his house.
That's awesome. It's a wild time we live in, man. They're coming after Brian Callen now. Apparently, he's getting accused of something that happened 20 years ago.
Yeah,
He's like the latest one.
I did see that one, and you know, I want to believe the victims, but you can't just say, you know, so and so did this and then be like, oh, I hate that person forever now. When you gotta research some stuff. You know, these things don't just fall out of the sky. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah. There's that much smoke. There's probably a fire somewhere.
There probably is, but like, find the fire first.
Yeah.
You know.
It's just, I don't know. With this huge exodus that's happening, like, I mean, everyone is leaving. Joey Diaz is leaving. You know, all the heavy hitters at the LA Comedy Store that are all these huge podcasters and pretty much run LA, they're all leaving. Like, Joe Rogan is leaving. Theo Von is leaving. Chris D'Elia is pretty much dead. You know, and it's like, who's going to be left once everything opens up? How are you going to sell tickets to that place? Because that was the big draw, you know, like, you go see Joe Rogan on the road somewhere, you're going to pay upwards of $100 a ticket to go see him in an arena with Dave Chappelle or somebody.
And that's the cheap seat.
And that's the cheap seats. Or when you come to LA, you know, if you're just going on vacation, or, you know, if you're like me and you travel up there just to go to the Comedy Store, you know, you go in there, you pay $20 and you see, like, the night that I saw Joe Rogan, I got to see Andrew Santino open for him, Jim Gaffigan opened for him, and then Joe Rogan came out and did an hour.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, shit. And we're sitting right there in the main room. And then I turn and walk down the hallway going towards the original room just because I was like, you know, wanting to see everything that I could while I was there. And I see Steve Byrne, Whitney Cummings, Chris Elliott, they're all in the hallway. I'm like, oh shit. You know, like what you get at like your local comedy club where you see other comics in the hallway is just like that there. Like that's their workout room.
Right.
And that's what was so crazy. It's like, oh, this is fucking insane. Because, you know, the year before, me and my wife, we went to Atlanta to see Chris D'Elia. And, I mean, those tickets were like $40 a piece, so it wasn't that bad. It was at the Tabernacle. And we were sitting so fucking far away. We were in the cheap seats. And he was, you know, like this.
Yeah.
And then, you know, for fast forward a year later, you know, I'm going to say, hey, what's up, man? Take a picture with him and all this shit. It was wild. And like, I've gotten to meet Bobby Lee there. I met Donnell Rawlings at the La Jolla Comedy Store. And that's what I don't know. Everybody says I'm such a huge fanboy because I get to meet all these comics. And I'm like, you just got to know what to do. Like, when you're...
Yeah, if you're out there and you can kind of just act like you belong there, they'll say what's up, you know? I mean, that's the way it is. I know at the comedy studio up here, I'm lucky enough to know the owner pretty well, so I'll just walk in and say what's up. And, you know, I might run into like Eugene Merman or Gary Goldman stops in every now and then, but it's not like an epicenter like LA, like you're saying. And yeah, that is interesting. Like, where's everybody? Like, what's going to be the new hub? Like, is it just going to revert back to being New York, or?
I don't know, man. Like, that's the main thing. Is like, I don't blame them for leaving because LA is so much more strict on the restrictions right now than like San Diego. Like here, you know, the comedy clubs are closed, but they're, you know, converting to outdoor comedy. So they're still making money and there's still headliners coming and performing. They're just doing it outside. I think Taylor Thomason, she's San Diego native. She just dropped a special, like, I think in April, but she's doing the Comedy Store this weekend, but she's going to be outside. So they're finding ways to make money. They're looking for spots that are open. And I mean, a lot of them are just like, look, I'm staying in LA right now to do a podcast and I'm paying all this extra money to live here. It's ungodly to live in Los Angeles right now. And it's just going to get worse.
We had, but before all this happened, speaking of like cancel culture and stuff, I don't think we're going to have any comedy clubs. I think the comedy studio is going to be the only thing that survives it right now. But we had an open mic venue that the host like canceled the venue because the owner was involved in some sort of sexual assault and was like brazenly unapologetic about it. And it was just part of this, you know, it created a bad culture in that venue.
Oh, yeah.
So he literally canceled the venue, and now that venue, like, it closed like a month before all this stuff happened and it got rebought by somebody else. But yeah, it's amazing how fast, like, you know, it just cancels like that.
Yeah. It wasn't the exact same type of situation, but I was really excited back in February because they were about to open a Laugh Factory here. Like,
oh, wow.
they rented out this space under a hotel right in downtown. It's actually pretty funny because your two main clubs in downtown were the Madhouse and the American Comedy Company, and they're both at the ends of this street. Well, right up through the middle is Gaslamp. That's your big party district. They were going to throw that Laugh Factory right there on the corner of Gaslamp. And I was like, oh, this place is about to take all the business from these other places. And I was like, this is going to be the club to be in.
I mean, if everything opens up again, who's to say they won't?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and that's the thing, like with it being like a big name, like the Laugh Factory, it kind of coincides with a place like the Comedy Store. Like everybody knows, like, oh, like they hear it in the podcast, they hear the big comedians talking about it there. And if you go to the Laugh Factory or the Comedy Store, you're going to see big names and stuff. But they were just about to open. They were like, yeah, we're just finalizing things. We're signing a couple more papers. Like, be on the lookout. We'll be open like within a week. And Russell Peters was supposed to come and like do the opening weekend, and they expected to sell out. And the coronavirus hit right then. And then it just completely closed down. I went walking around downtown. It looks like fucking Gotham down there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I totally can imagine that, actually.
Yeah. Like when all the protests started happening, everybody started boarding the windows of their buildings up. And a lot of them have just stayed like that because, you know, they just started something new where because they've allowed outdoor dining, a lot of the restaurants up Gaslamp have just moved all their tables outside. And it's actually kind of cool because when you walk through there, they've cut traffic off and all the tables from the different restaurants are just in the street. So it's actually kind of cool, but right around that nice little hub is just homeless town. And it's terrible.
Wow.
It makes me wonder how long it will take for, like, let's say they came out with a vaccine today. How long will it take things to get cleaned up and get back to semi-normal?
Yeah, and I really believe that, like, once things do open up, like, it's just going to be this, like, everybody wants to go out explosion of people that, you know, could end up making things worse again. But,
yeah,
we gotta get out of the house, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
We drive ourselves crazy.
I mean, it's like here, like the beaches are open now. Like they kind of came to the conclusion, like, hey, this is pretty fucking stupid. You can't go out on the beach. Like it's out, beautiful sunshine. You're outside. Like, let's be real here. People aren't catching a virus on the beach. Now, if it's like Panama City spring break where everybody's, you know, up on each other, then yeah, maybe. But here, it's a lot of families, you know, they're pretty socially distanced, and there's so much coastline, you know, it's not that big of an issue.
Yeah, as long as you're not out there partying, like, and you're able to keep, like you said, I'm not trying to sit right next to somebody while I chill on the beach unless it's like, you know, my girlfriend or my parents or some shit. Like,
yeah, but that's what's so crazy is like, because there's nothing else to do, these people will go to the beach and it will be overcast. It will look like fucking London outside. Like, it will be just dark. It'll look like Seattle. Like, it's just dark and dreary and just doesn't look like like a beach day. And people are out there, you know, hauling all their shit in one of those little wagons across the street. Like, when I'm driving to work in the mornings, it'll be 8:30 in the morning. And it'll look like it's about to rain. And there's people out there in bikinis and shit. I'm like, you're not going to get a tan. What are you out here for? But it's because they don't have shit else to do.
Yeah, you just got to be out there.
I don't know, man. But hey, we've been at this for about 2 hours now. I think we've pretty much covered every subject I think we can. Is there anything that you want to ask before we call it a day?
No, I think we've gone over everything, like you said.
Yeah.
Give myself a little plug, you know, for people who don't know me. I do a parody conspiracy theory podcast every Wednesday called Trash Panda Talks Wrestling, and then on Mondays I do the Trash Conspiracy, and then Trash Panda Talks Wrestling. I talk about wrestling. I got it backwards there, but yeah, just people find me on YouTube.
Hell yeah, man. Well, hey, I appreciate it. I like sitting down with you. I'll have you on again sometime when, you know, the world does officially end. We can talk about this from the inside of our cave or some shit.
Yeah, I just got me a man cave. I'm really happy with it.
Hell yeah, man. All right, man. Well, hey, take care of yourself.
I appreciate it, man.
All right. See ya.
Once again, a huge thanks to Vaiden for sitting down with me. I loved our episode. I had a lot of fun doing it. And, you know, whenever some of these conspiracies come to light, we'll have another episode here pretty soon. But that being said, that pretty much wraps today's episode up. If you like this podcast and you want to be sitting in the same spot that he was, hit me up, DM me, Instagram me, whatever. If you want to be on this podcast, reach out to me and I'll see what I can do to work you into things, okay? If you like this podcast, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on iTunes, leave a review. This is what helps the podcast grow. Tell your friends. If you like it, refer them to it. Maybe they'll like it more than you. Who knows? With that being said, I appreciate you guys for listening, and I'll see you when I see you. Y'all take care.